Greetings to all of you. This is the last video of this class, and this is the last week we actually have activities other than, of course, your final week, which is the final paper. And I thought that now I will say a few more words, especially about this comparison between what it is to be a knight of fate, what it is to be a tragic hero, and what it is to be a murderer after all. And at the same time, how Kierkegaard develops the whole story with Abraham and Isaac. The video will be longer. Please watch all of it, especially because I hope it may help you for your final paper. At the same time, please let me know if you have any questions about the final paper in this last days that we still spend with Kierkegaard's class. So I have already sent you the PowerPoint for this week, and I will kind of follow it just so you get a better idea about what it says and how it, from my perspective at least, says a lot about Kierkegaard and about how Kierkegaard sees things. So you have a first picture, of course, with a young girl and a lamb, because the lamb is a sacrifice. It's just a picture. But then you have this idea about modern human beings become their own god, and I talked a little bit about love last time, and now if we think about what love is and how love can become often idolatrous, Kierkegaard discusses that, and he says, you know, for us as modern human beings, what we all become is that we become our own gods. In what way? Well, if you remember Plato at the beginning, Plato is often discussing how we fall in love with our own ideas. And the people Socrates was speaking to were people who were always believing that they were right and that they were smarter than everybody else. And through his questions, Socrates was trying to make them realize that they were wrong. We are humans like them, for Kierkegaard. And the one question that we... Now I'm going to just close the door. The one question that we often are asking is, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the first of them all? Which you probably know from the Snow White and I forgot the seventh word or something like that. What's our answer? Me, 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 me. I am the first of them all because I am the wisest. I am the most beautiful. I am the I do not know what. I am the center of the world. This is our perspective, Kierkegaard says. What it means is that we have forgotten to love, because loving is to give ourselves to another without expecting anything in return. So, how is that applicable to the story of Abraham and Isaac? Perhaps the whole story is a trial into making, or a process of education, let me put it this way, into making Abraham realize that his love for God and his love for his son were misplaced. Because if I love God because he has promised to me that I will be the father of a mighty nation, I love God for the wrong reasons. If I love my son because my son will be the one which will create for me a mighty nation, because if my son doesn't have children, I will not I will have no mighty nation, of course, then again I'm loving my son for the wrong reasons. I'm loving my son as an object. So how does Kierkegaard work? What tries to show all that? Well, in logic, that's why you have in the third slide universal and particular, we always go in deduction from universal to the particular. In ethics, we have the same thing. Ethics in philosophy are not relativist. Whatever you believe is right, whatever I believe is right. That's not the case for philosophers. We philosophers are trying to look for the truth, and we believe there is truth. We may have wrong ideas about truth, but that's why we have dialogue. That's why we enter into dialogues, to find out what truth actually is. So in ethics, though, you know, we have general statements. If I follow ethics, if it's right for me to murder my son or to sacrifice my son, my child, it is also right for you. If someone commits murder and I think that's illegal or unethical, then it has to be for all people. And if you look at the argument on the slide number 3, if someone commits murder, someone commits an immoral action, that's an universal statement. If I go to the particular, Abraham kills his son, then I have to apply the universal to the particular situation, and I conclude, of course, that Abraham commits an immoral action. in the ethical, Abraham is not saved. In the ethical, Abraham is a murderer. But Kierkegaard says that it is possible to consider this situation outside of the ethical. And when he talks about outside of the ethical, he goes into the faith, or into religious, or into love, because love is something that goes beyond explanation. I cannot tell somebody else to love or to stop loving a person, because that love is unexplainable, and it cannot be explained to me, and I cannot explain love to somebody else. You know, think of this way, so I can compare logic and philosophy to the religious or the faith that Kierkegaard proposes. Suppose there is there's a situation in which one of the spouses is abusing the other, or not abusing, so let's not go into that, but you know, not behaving rightly, so has lots of affairs and things like that. According to logic, you'd say, stop loving him. Let's say it's him who does all this. Let him go, or you go. Don't stay with him, right? It's not good for you. It's not good for your future. But that is according to logic, because we apply universal statements. But it is possible for that person to say, it is impossible for me to leave him. Why? Just because my life cannot be my life outside of him. I'm not saying that what he does is right, that person will say, but I have to be with him for me, not for him. Is that possible? I think it's possible in the sense in which you have, you hear of cases like that, right? Is that right or wrong? That's the wrong question, Kierkegaard says. It's not about whether it's right or wrong, because right or wrong cannot be applicable to the situation. What's applicable to this situation is that person's feelings and that person's love for another human being. Let me emphasize that I went outside of ethics. I'm not saying that ethics is relative. I'm saying you go beyond that. And you go beyond that because you find yourself into a different realm. So, if you go back to the story with Abraham and Isaac, you could say, well, is it right for a father to take his own son to sacrifice? No! If you ask the question, right? But Kierkegaard says, it's the wrong question. It's not about this question. It's not about whether it's right or wrong. It's about understanding that in that situation, the only thing Abraham does is suspending the ethical. So suspending all judgments. He cannot say, it is right for me to murder my son or to sacrifice my son. It's wrong to say that. He cannot say, I should not trust God. Because he cannot say that either, you know, because he would put himself outside of God, and his whole life, his life has been understood in connection with God. So Kierkegaard will say, in the ethical, we always judge. We always give statements that finish somebody else. Finish because it puts another person into a category. In the religious, you would say, we love. What does it mean? There is a complete lack of judgment for anyone else, and there is a complete lack of judgment in our situation for whether it is the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do to sacrifice. Abraham can never say in his own heart that it's good for him to sacrifice Isaac. If he says that, he's a murderer. The only thing he can do is to suspend all judgment. What is the difference between Abraham and a terrorist, after all? Doesn't the terrorist sacrifice for God? Don't they say that I believe that my God requires me to kill the unbelievers or something like that? They do, right? Many of them do, at least. Is Abraham a terrorist in that sense? Kierkegaard would say no. And the main difference is that a terrorist knows what he does. And he believes he's right. He is the center of the universe because he applies what he believes the right thing to do is. Abraham is not. Abraham is silent. He doesn't speak about it. He does not understand it. He always says, God will see. I don't. He's going for 3 days on the road to Moriah without knowing what happens. Knowing what was required of him, but not knowing whether he will get there or not. If he knows that he will get there and he will sacrifice his son, it's wrong. If he knows he goes there and God will save his son, wrong. The only thing he can do is to trust that God will never leave him. It's the leap of faith. Jumping in the arms of whoever loves you, not knowing what's gonna happen. If you think about it, in marriages or when you